There we go. Hey, this is Dan and Don coming to you from theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, that website is www.theclinicaltrialsguru.com. How are you? Dan and I want to just cover a few things, some articles that we have read, and then some people that we've talked to, videos and stuff about people going into clinical trials. It goes back to the reason that we started this, and that's the whole thing is Dan has coined the phrase of demystifying clinical trials and telling it to you in plain truth. And we want to talk about that a little bit, and we won't take up too much of your time. You know, like I just read an article about a gentleman, and I know the situation is very tragic to his mom, and I'm very sorry, you know, to what happened. This guy was put in clinical trials, and while he was in the hospital in an inpatient study, he died. Now, the author, the way I see it, it sounds like he's blaming the clinical trials. I don't see enough evidence there and even enough information in that article to tell me that. I don't know, it could have been just the care that the hospital wasn't giving him. I don't know if while he was in that study, if he presented to the clinical staff that everything was fine, but didn't tell him everything that was going on with him and went back to his room. Now, the fact that apparently this guy cut himself pretty badly, and did he say it was with a box cutter?
Yeah, something like that.
So you have to ask yourself is how did he get a box cutter? Now, how did he get that box cutter in there? In a hospital, I've worked in hospitals, you thoroughly go through a person's stuff to make sure they don't have any sharp objects or anything that can hurt themselves. When I worked in a hospital, we take their shoestrings, their belt, anything that could be used to hang themselves with, even if they weren't suicidal, because if they're not suicidal, we don't know that someone down the hallway may be come in their room and get those things and hang themselves. So you have to ask yourself those questions. How did he get those things to hurt himself to begin with? So that's where it lies. And to put the blame on clinical research is a little tough, and especially when I'm seeing that there's a lot of atypicals that are being used on the market already. I'm not sure what the study was about. I'm not sure what went on, if he talked to the doctors or not talked to the doctors, any of that stuff. So there's not enough information there for me to make that judgment call to say it was on the clinical studies. I worked in clinical trials. Dan and I interviewed a lot of people, and a lot of these people we talk to do clinical trials, and some of them make their living that way. And I'm not suggesting that, but this is what they do, and they're okay. There was a video that's done by Time Magazine on a guy referred to as the guinea pig, referred to himself as the guinea pig, and he talked about his experience in the clinical trials and the different ones that he's gone into. Most of them are medical studies, and how he makes his money. As a matter of fact, we get a little short blurb in that whole thing.
Yes, sneeze and you might miss it, Don. It's at the 2:57 mark for those of you curious. We'll put it on our blog, but I'm warning you, if you sneeze, you will miss us.
Right. So you got to be careful sometimes. It's interesting how people like to focus on the negative, and that's what they want to point out. And what I'm picking up from this article is that clinical trials is extremely dangerous. Don't do it. You know, and yet without these other people who've done clinical trials, we wouldn't be where we're at. And if you're on any kind of medication, you got to thank those people who have actually tested that medication so that you can have it. The whole thing behind it is there's a lot more things that go on. You have to look at the staff and what was the staff doing. What are the staffs doing? I think we talked about that stuff before. Are the sites following the protocol? Are they following good clinical practice? These are things that are very important, and they have to be doing those things. This is how you protect your patient. This is how you protect someone, especially if you got someone in the inpatient program. Are the nurses attending to that person? Are they making the rounds and checking on that person to make sure they're okay? Are you watching that person and to see if they're escalating based on not just what they're doing, but what they're saying? Because sometimes a lot of people, if they're headed to trouble, at least what I learned working in the hospitals, especially with psych units, is that a lot of times you listen to the conversation and people start telling you when they're starting to escalate or something's going on. Now, nothing's 100% guaranteed that you can always pick up everything, but you can definitely be tuned into what's going on if you listen. So, I don't know. You got anything to say to this, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, I guess our whole point is that the media portrayal of clinical trials is often negative. You know, when they do ever cover clinical trials, it's often negative, And I mean, look, we've said it before. There's 20 million Americans in a study right now. Chances are some of those people are going to have bad experiences.
Exactly.
But most of them will have good experiences, and well, actually, I should say most will have neutral experiences, and then some will have good experiences. So to only focus on the bad and only shed light on the bad, and the media, I mean, I understand they're out for ratings.
Exactly.
But to portray clinical trials in a negative way is not fair to everyone else who's on the fence about maybe doing a study. And at the end of the day, how are we going to get treatments and cures if people are scared to join clinical trials?
And also, what I picked up in this is the author of this article was saying that that everything is motivated by money. By money, it's all profit driven, and that's yes and no. Yeah, it is a company. It's a company that's out there to make money, and just like any corporation, no different than you and I go to work. What do we go to work for?
Yeah,
for money.
Motivated by money, of course.
But that doesn't mean we're going to go to work and do bad things, you know. And that's the problem. We all don't. And there's a lot of good people out there that are trying to do good things that are earning a living.
Yeah. The most altruistic thing anyone can ever do is make a lot of money and become successful.
Yeah. And
that's my belief. You may not agree with me out there, but I really think so, because that person is going to create jobs. Those people who have the jobs are going to spend money. Then other people will create jobs, and that's what we need to do. So for people to say, well, you know, it's all about money, this and that, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right, and you have to look at that interview that we did with a gentleman, and he gave reason why he does studies. You know, it's about it allows him to afford a certain lifestyle, to do other things other than if he had worked a 9-to-5 job. He felt that he would be very constricted on the things that he likes to do in his life. Someone else went into a clinical study because they wanted to write a book about it. So there are many different reasons. People go in because they have bills to pay and they have no other alternative on how to come up with it. And they go in, they do the study, and they go home. Now, not that people have not had any negative reactions. Yeah, there has been, and there probably will always be. I mean, it's just like anything else. People have car crashes and people get killed in car crashes, but yet people every day get in their car and drive to work or drive to the movies or to the grocery store. And what I'm saying is that you can't say that the industry is coercing people and putting people in extremely dangerous situations in order to make a profit, and that's what I'm picking up from this. I don't agree with that. I don't know the full story, what happened. It is definitely a tragic loss to that mom, because I've lost a family member before and in a hospital, but I had to look at it objectively and look at what really went on. I could have blamed the doctors in the hospital. It was easy for me to do. But the bottom line, what happened was that there was a chain of events that went on with this family member, and I'm not saying that what went on with her was a result of her son and her son only. I don't know. We don't know the whole story.
Yeah.
Arthur didn't present it, but what he did present was a lot of negativity, and it was a lot of, to me, scare factors.
How much time we got left, Don?
Oh, we're still good.
Good, because I wanted to ask you, you brought up something interesting about that Time magazine video, okay?
Yeah.
They featured a guy, he calls himself a professional guinea pig.
Yes.
He's done dozens of studies.
Yes.
What did you say about him after doing all those studies?
After doing all those studies, he's still up, walking around, and healthy, as far as we can see. Now, obviously, someone can say, well, you don't know what's going to happen 30, 30 years from now with this guy. No, I don't. I don't know what's going to happen to me 20, 30 years from now, especially for all the stuff I did. I played sports for years, and I don't know if any of that stuff's going to affect me 30 years from now, and it may and it may not. But on the other hand, this guy's up walking around, plus he's earning money to do what he wants to do, so I can't beat him up for that. You know, it's right now it's a positive for him, and only he can determine whether it's a negative thing or a positive thing. You know.
Well, he made his decision. Obviously, he knows he's
right.
Pretty informed.
Exactly.
And he's obviously had good experiences if he's doing studies over and over and over and over and over again.
Well, the guy mentions an article in here how they signed the client up without his mom being present. Well, the question is that you didn't indicate in there was whether or not he was on conservatorship with his mom. Yes, if he's on conservatorship, the mom should have been there. They should have never put him in without the mom being there. If he wasn't on conservatorship, then it's a matter of whether or not he had the capacity to sign for himself, and the only person knows that is the doctor and the staff that was there. The doctor makes that determination if he was able to consent for himself. We don't know those things, and those things weren't presented. So that's why to me it was not an objective or fair article. It was a very biased article and is almost extreme to scaring people.
So the whole point about this video is today and today only we saw two videos, or one video and one article that were negative. But these were like big, platforms. Time Magazine, and the other one was something else that gets a lot of views. And they're both negative, and we're here to say that there's mostly neutral or positive stuff coming out of clinical trials, and there are negative, but for those to get all the media coverage is not fair to everyone who's ever participated in a study.
Yeah, I don't know if Time Magazine's was completely negative. This is just my opinion. I think he was trying to create a balance. He was given the ins and outs, and the guy was talking about what he does and the guinea pigs and so forth, being a guinea pig, and how he puts himself at risk. And like even when I showed my in-laws the picture, they didn't know what the stickers were on his stomach.
Yeah,
that's where they were attached to EKG.
Yeah.
They thought that was where they were poking him with needles.
Well, the point was it wasn't positive. It was they didn't feature someone who joined a clinical trial for cancer and got cured.
Yeah, and that's not what clinical trials are there for.
Right.
It is what it is. And you're testing medication and to get results. And if the results are positive, then it's something that can go out on the market to benefit someone that has that medical therapeutic usage.
And the other extreme of this is some websites out there, they want to enroll as many people as they can. Everything's positive. Clinical trial,
Right.
Everything's good.
Right.
You get medical care. We're not saying that's right either.
That's not. We don't agree with that either. You have to find that balance and create that balance, and you have to follow the protocols, and you have to make sure you're protecting people in both their health and their rights, and that's the bottom line. And you can do that and be successful at what you do.
So like your friend Bill O'Reilly, Don, the no spin zone.
Okay.
Right. Don hates Bill O'Reilly.
No, I don't hate him. I'm just not favorable to him.
The spin stops here.
Yeah, there you go. This is Don and Dan signing off from The Clinical Trials Guru. Again, that website is www.theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.